Hello and welcome to this video tutorial for the Level Designers Toolkit, or LDT for short. It is a small series of blueprints that I have made for level designers such as myself to be able to communicate their designs more effectively. In LDT, you will find a series of 9 blueprints, all built with the goal of effectively communicating your design to others. And also for finding some, sort of problematic areas for yourself. So starting with the first tool is the line of sight model. It is a great little tool for figuring out what a player can and cannot see from certain angles, but also just communicating that sort of design to others, right? So if we can go over here to our settings, we can go and activate this one, and we can go and change his team to blue team because this is blue side. And we can start seeing how when we're coming around this corridor, we can start seeing that we're, effectively hiding the red team members from this unit as he comes around until he comes and sticks his nose out a little bit further before he can start to see them. So this is using just a top-down projection method. It does, however, allow us to at least see them glowing blue. But yeah, so that allows us to sort of communicate how far the player would need to be out before he can see there. We can go and click on the opposite side, and we can go and activate the red team, and we can start seeing that that's also being communicated. So they can only see him when he's that far out, but this player could sort of push up here, completely invisible, and then when he peeks out here, then he can start seeing them, right? And let's get I'm actually looking at them. So yeah, we can start seeing that happen as they start to highlight blue from this guy, right? So there you go. You can sort of see their viewpoint happening as he comes across there. And then the same thing is happening in reverse, as this player can see him. So yeah, again, just as he turns red, there we go. Cool. So that's the first point of the LOS tool. Very useful, mostly for top downs. It comes with a second part, and that is the LDT tool controller. And that just has some quick little toggles for toggling everyone on and off, as well as just certain teams. So you could quickly toggle blue team, quickly toggle red team, just so that you can, quickly control your screenshots. So that's a fantastic session for like here, you just go into G mode, take a screenshot. You're very effectively communicating how your view line blockers are working and what's happening. So just a fantastic little beginning tool. Cool. The second tool is the heat map tool. It also comes in 2 parts. It's got the heat map part, which I've already got in the level. And you can see that we've got some point of interests around. So there we go. I'm going to place one here in the spawn point for blue team. And so essentially what this is going to do is it's going to need a nav mesh because it's going to run a bot from one point to all of the other points. And it's going to use the shortest line method possible, right? So remembering that your players are not going to take convoluted methods to get somewhere. They're always going to choose the shortest level of friction. So once those point of interests are in, we can go and select our heat map tool, and we can go and hit the generate button. And there you go. So the bot is going to run through the course. It's going to leave a trail behind, and as it crosses over that trail multiple times, it'll increase the heat density of that grid point. You can change the colors over here. By default, they're black. I've chosen blue and red, just sort of good default colors, and I've allowed debug lines on, which we saw earlier. So I'm going to just delete and regenerate, so you can see that just without the debug lines. And yeah, again, this will stay up. So you can do screenshots, and you can also generate multiple times. So there we go. If you want to just make the certain sort of pathways more clear. And one other thing is that it's also able to jump up and down certain areas. Specifically, if you want that to happen, like over here, you need to go and add one of these nav links, making sure that you have the direction set correctly. So in this situation, I've got it wrong. So it would only be from left to right. So from here to here, so actually from right to left, is so that our players can jump down. But here, I'd like them to be able to climb up and down. So those sort of situations happen, so we can visualize that to our whoever's like looking at the presentation, or even yourself, right? So you're able to see how this sort of bot is finding his pathways through the map. And you can see that, again, he's using the least friction to get to this point. So he's not going to take this longer path up here. And if you want that to happen, then you need to go and add a point of interest and regenerate. So delete, generate, and there we go. So now it's going to this pathway. So, those sort of things, you just need to account for them. This is for you to, more accurately reflect what you are trying to show. It is not going to be hey, this is how the player is going to be walking around. Right, so let's just toggle that on and off. Cool, that's part 2, is the heat map. Tool number 3 is the zone tool. The zone tool is a spherical highlighter that'll help you sort of show certain areas. So let's go and set one up over here. So let's do a blue team spawn. So we can grab our BP LDT zone and select that over here. We've got some settings, so we can set how big it is. So we can do over there. We can change the color. This is blue team, so let's go and get a nice blue. We can change the brightness just to help visual quality. So let's choose a nice blue. And then we've got a couple of icons that you can go and put. So you can grab from the icons folder. So we can say that this is spawn team A's spawn site. And that's pretty much it. We can also use the zone tool to highlight bomb spawn areas. So if we go and grab our zone tool, select it over here, we can size this down. And we can use this sort of to highlight sort of tricky areas where players can sort of jump onto this box and plant over there if they wanted to, or use some sort of boosting strat to get all the way up there. Or if you don't want that, sort of just moving it out of that sort of zone. So there we go. So we can do that. We can, sort of highlight this is a bomb area with a key color and go and get like a bomb icon. So there we go. Or if we wanted to be more specific, this is site C. Cool. So one of the cool tools you can use in conjunction with the zone tool is the path tool. Is a great way of visualizing. So let's go and select our target. How you visualize your lanes working. So generally in a 5v5 sort of Counter-Strike map, you've got 3 lanes, left, right, and mid. Or, in multiple bomb cases, more than that. But in this situation, you've got the path tool, and it essentially will draw, again, a AI-generated path line to the zone. It's got a couple of settings, so you can turn it on and off. You've got the debug line, so you can just sort of see how the AI is finding its way there. You can select multiple targets, you can select a target, so that's just where it'll try and find its way to. You can select a decal, and that's under materials. We've got 2. We've got an arrow and a steps, and that is because on this section you can actually change the color. So we could say, hey, this is blue team, we want a blue set of footprints. Turn off the debug, and you can then go and scale. So we can say like 0.5, and the distance between each one. So if we want more, we can do 200. Right, and then delete last is just a little tool so that you can, in some situations, it might not be nice to go all the way up to the edge, so that way it'll just get close enough. Then we could go and do the same thing for the other side. We've already got that set up. So here's red team. So we can go and select the zone, not delete last. Put just as many, actually, yeah, delete last. There we go. Now the cool thing about this is generally for balancing reasons, you want a certain team to reach a site faster. And so that's where in this tool, you can see that we do have a path distance meter. So here it's 49 meters, and this is using the in-game units, and over here it's 63. So we can confirm that if their movement speeds are the same, that red team will reach that site faster than blue team. So essentially defense should reach the point before the attackers do. And that's a really great little tool to sort of balance your map, and you could pull one spawn point just further away until you start getting the numbers that you want. I might just add that in the future, so you could have a speed, speed distance equals time. So if you knew how fast your players were walking, you would know exactly what the time it would take them to get to that point. So, you could use the point of interest tool to specify where you want your team to arrive, and then figure out the distance to that point. So if you want 2 teams to reach a certain location. So in this sort of situation, down mid, where we've got this unit, we want our defense side to know if they're crossing over. So let's set him to red team, turn on his visualizer, and now we can see that he's got a thin line of sight, so long as he's undercover, so that he can see when units are crossing over. We want him to reach that point before anyone else. So we can go and use a path tool. We can specify this unit. Let's go and set that to blue. Maybe not that much. Right? So how long, and this is not, the decals are just for show. It's actually using the full length of the line, so the debug line, to work out the distance. So we know that that's a distance of 23 meters before he's in that location. How far, if he's jumping down from here, is this location? So sort of same settings. We'll keep the arrows. We'll set it to red. 200, 0.5. Right? And now we know 14 meters. So we know now that red side will reach their mid corridor before the the terrorist side, right? So blue team. Got the color switched the wrong way around, but that's fine. Cool. So that's just a very useful little tool for being able to very clearly see just how long certain locations will take to get to. Very useful, very great for also just, sort of going for another, again, top-down views. It does show in G mode, so it's nice and clean. So you can easily show exactly how you picture people just walking down to certain parts of the map. Our next tool is the ruler tool. It is very important to have player expectations, have a set standard of cover heights. I like to divide my cover heights into 4, so you'll see that like in certain specific areas where I'm trying to balance how I want my player cover to work, I've got them over here, I've got it over here, and then I've got it over here. Now generally you don't need to put both down, I'm just doing that for display sake, but essentially you've got 2 tools. One is just a quick static mesh that you can plonk down. It has just got the sort of preset sizes, and that's fine if you're just using standard units of measurement. But we've also got a more advanced ruler over here if you have more custom unit head sizes. So that comes with a couple of tools where specifically you can set how each one is set. So you can just change that. Or if your character just has a general scale applied to it, you can just go through and set that custom scale. Cool. So it's also just a useful measurement stick. And yeah, so those sort of heights that I like to call head height, which would be full cover. Full concealment is full concealment while crouched. A shoulder height is when you are crouched, you're not fully concealed, you can still fire and be fired at. And finally, crawling height generally doesn't happen in an FPS game, but it's just useful in sort of certain situations like this, where I want to not make it so that you can just sort of run off a cliff edge. It has to be like a jump, or for situations where they're coming up of this ramp, then it has just a tiny little bit more cover for certain gameplay aspects, such as sniping down this corridor. Cool. So in this sort of situation, we've got full concealment, so the player has to be completely standing, or crouching, which can be done over here. So you can visualize their role, either that or as a sniper. But for now, just rifleman, and then just showing that, hey, if they're crouched, they're fully concealed. But, let's say that you wanted to balance it so that they could be fired and fired at, but then they had to step sideways to actually get the full concealment. Then you can just sort of bring this down until you reach that shoulder height. Just fix that. There we go. So now our player over here has, let's just bring it. So we display it like this, right? So the movement would need to be a lot more out and then peak, or just sitting here crouching, firing, and hope not to get that the other team's got better firing methods, right? So that all just affects gameplay and how you want to balance that. It's just a really useful tool to be able to plonk down and be like, hey, someone's built this model. It might not reflect how your gray box is working. So you bring it in here, you go, this is in a standard height. So then you can take that sort of model, you can bring it down to a standard height cover, or scale it, adjust it, just in a way that works. And now you know that, hey, player standing here, he's got a reasonable expectation of how his cover is working. So yeah, very, very useful tool. The last tool is the LDT grenade throw arch. It is a very useful tool just for sort of showing off how grenades work. It does have the caveat that you can only have one of these on a map at a time, because the debug line that I'm using can only be shown at one section. You can do a couple of other things with it. So it has a reset just in case something breaks, so you can essentially turn it off, and then just you can toggle the update check here just to bring it back. It's also got a clear all line, so if you set up a couple of these, you can sort of bug it so that you can get them, you know, drawing a few of them at the same time. So what I like to do is, I'll show that now. So yeah, let's just go over some of the settings. You've got distance, so just how far the arch goes before its first bounce. And then from there, you have the loss of energy. So a higher percentage is more loss of energy. So higher friction, essentially. So, and then you've got how many bounces. So 1, 2, 3. This can be a little bit finicky, just depending on like how your ground's collision boxes is working. So it might not always reflect the accuracy. But again, this is just to visualize and to show off how you want your players to be acting. It's not a true prediction of how they will react. But, it's just used for sort of situations like this where, you want to be able to show that, like, if you had, let's say, some boxes up here, getting in the way of archers. So if you want to stop your players from making a certain throw, but you want them to be able to, like, say, come over here. And then you want them to be able to toss a grenade that sort of bounces in a certain spot and lands at a certain location. So then you can increase. I find that 44 is a general good number, but in this case, let's lower it. And let's say that, like, hey, in this case, again, this is all very specific to how your game's grenades are set up to bounce. If they don't bounce, whatever. But in this case, we're just trying to show or visualize that, hey, we predict, or we want our players to know that this is a place where they can launch a grenade through. Or if you want to stop that sort of behavior, then you can just throw that in and update. Right? So you can sort of show that you are planning to block that line off. Right? So again, if you want to show multiple of these, one thing that you can do is you can turn off clear all lines on those units. And as you go through, it will activate on each one. But then, yeah, just don't move it afterwards. But yeah, if you just check the update mark on and off, you'll get your lines back. So again, yeah, you could then colorize for both teams and show that off. And just a really great way to do some nice screenshots here. Yeah, cool. So that's all of the LDT tools. Just a really great way for helping visualize in your documentation how you plan your map to layout. And again, this is not a how players will react. This is you explaining your thought process behind your level design in a more intuitive way, rather than trying to do fancy drawings. You can just plop one of these tools down, take a screenshot, document it. I hope that's been helpful. Work hard and play hard. Cheers.